All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. I am Jeremy. I will be leading the call today, doing my best to answer any questions, help out with whatever it is that we need, take a look at some things, whatever that may be. I don't believe we have any pre-submitted questions, or if we did, it may not have gone through for me. So if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat or the Q&A, and I'll be happy to get to them. Otherwise, we'll just give it a couple minutes in case anyone else is planning on joining, and then we will get started on this in just a moment. Right. We do have a few people in here, so we'll be able to get started here in a second. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. We got a couple questions. Keep in mind, if you have any other questions, please post them in the chat, and I'd be happy to help try my best to answer some of them. So I am Jeremy. Just our quick kind of daily reminders for all of our lunch and learns. Please feel free to check out. We got these two QR codes to check out if you want to take a look at some of the other content and other things that we have available within Decisions. We got the Solutions Marketplace. So if you're looking for anything here, um, if you want to keep track of or take a look at some of the different applications and things that we have available, a number of featured ones, some various accelerators and things that you could install and take a look at, and partner solutions and community options as well here. If you'd like to take a look at anything, Decisions Marketplace has that covered. In addition, we also have our Decisions Support YouTube channel, so it's just Decisions-Support, and here is where we put all of our lunch and learns, and as well as additional other training content and things like that, so that you can kind of keep track of some things and help learn some new things if you aren't um, you know as fully caught up, or maybe just are interested in learning new stuff. So you can see we kind of have all of our lunch and learns, and we also add additional content weekly, to kind of new things. Like we have a repository primer now to kind of take a look at the repository process in Decisions and kind of the general overview of how that looks, stuff like that. So please feel free to check those out, because there's a lot of good stuff there. You may find what you're looking for. Okay, so let's get started with our questions. The first one that I had is from Wade. It says, I can't find the CreateSAML account for IDP for version 9. So I'm gonna let you talk, Wade. Just if you want to add a little bit, or of I'm assuming you were able to find this in version 8, you just not quite in version 9, or any other information you have that you know about this so far.
Oh yeah, I can't go back to confirm that it was an 8, but I've got multiple flows that have that module in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm looking in version 9. I just changed recently, probably in the past month, but I haven't really was looking for specifically for that, and then I'm looking for it and I can't find it. And I didn't know if it's a change to version 9 or I'm not
Yeah,
looking in the
yeah.
right place.
Is this like coming from a module or something? Or is
I'm
it
not.
like did you have to download a module that had this step in it? I'm
Uh,
not familiar with the step off the top of my head, so I'm just
I
trying
mean,
to.
it's maybe I know I installed the SAML stuff before, unless I have to restart with version 9. When we integrated with our SAML for single sign-on, it was there, and now it's gone.
Got
I
it.
didn't know if that was a usual. Yeah, I didn't know if that was supposed to happen or how that works.
No, I think normally it's there. Let me take a look here. So
I guess
if I go
how do I
to
confirm that I do have this SAML module installed?
yeah,
Oh, it's in features.
so yeah, so it's administration features is where you find like all of our modules and things. And then you also have there's some installed features. So you can kind of see what you have installed. So if you have SAML, you should see it here. If it's not installed, you might need to look like right here. Like on mine at least, I don't have it installed. So if I want to install the module, I'll have to install it. Um, so if I just do that real quick, um, and then once that's installed, hopefully that worked. Yeah. So now I have it
What?
installed, then I should be able to use it.
I was trying to
Um,
follow you as quick as I could. So
yeah,
I'm at the screen where it has a bunch of stuff for me, Active Directory. It's got a bunch of like blocks
yeah.
with
So that's
icons.
decisions
Yeah,
features.
yeah,
Yep. So I don't think it's here normally. I
yeah,
don't know why.
yeah. I
I
don't
don't see it
see
here.
it.
But if you
Yeah,
go to installed features,
don't
it'll show you what you have installed. The left side is what you have currently installed.
Oh, yeah, it's
So,
there. Yeah.
and if you should see it there, and right side is things like additional things that you don't. So it's in your installed.
Yep.
Okay. So then the second thing is, do you have a project in version 9 yet?
Project.
Have you created a
No,
project? Okay.
no.
So I believe, is it you? I have a call with someone later today about version 9. Is it with you, with your
That's
team?
probably me. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll give you a little sneak peek. We'll go
Okay.
further, but this will be useful for other people too that are kind of new. So we have like a second step in version 9 now because we have this whole project based like focus in version 9. So instead of, version 8 where you kind of have all of your folders and everything on like your whole main process, and then you can add them to projects, the version 9 has a project focus. So first you create a project and then you create all the content within that project. And the way that it works and the way that it kind of like codes everything and checks everything, we have an additional way to set up the modules and everything like that, so that you can actually have the modules and things that you need, and have the data and stuff that you want in your process. So that's what we're going to look at here. Give me just a second. Sorry, I think I lost something, and now I'm just a little. getting myself confused at the moment. I thought there were supposed to be other options up here, and I don't have them now. I don't know if I changed something. Robert, is that you in here with me? Am I missing something? Aren't there normally more dashboards under info?
So
Am I just having
what are you
mathematical
trying
infarct?
to, what are
I
you
was going
trying
to
to
open up
find?
the dependencies to add a dependency to this project.
Yeah, it should be under info. You're logged in as an admin.
Yeah,
Try clicking on manage and then under click the manage like actual header. And then you can also find dependencies in here somewhere. It's under maybe configuration. Let me pull up mine real quick. Apologies.
yeah, it is dependencies. Okay. I thought there was a default tab up here. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
there
something changed and I just missed it.
yeah, let me look at mine. That sounds familiar to me too. Yeah, it shows up on mine.
Oh, what
So
version are you in? Are you in
I'm
9.1 or
I'm
9.0?
in 9.0.
Okay, maybe this is a 9.1 change because I think I'm in 9.1.
Yeah, so on my info
I'll
tab,
investigate.
I see dashboard, health, dependencies,
Yeah.
history, integrations.
That's what I
Um,
thought. I'll take a look at that at some other point then and try to figure that
okay.
out. Okay. Sorry for that. Sorry for the wait there, Wade. So there used to be extra tabs up here that Robert's talking about that could take you directly to this. That's what I was looking for. Um, but regardless, anyway, so in a project, right, you create a project. Within a project, you have these manage tabs, and there's a section for dependencies. And so when you have modules in version 9, we want to make your modules you have to add your modules to be dependent on a project or allow your project to actually utilize those modules. So you'll see if I go to manage my dependencies, I don't have anything that it's relying on at the moment. But when I manage dependencies, I can make it reliant on additional projects. And so then if I do that, I can use any of the data that's within any of these projects, but I don't have to. And then same for modules. So then this will show me all the modules that I have available here that I should be able to create a dependency on for that. In fact, I don't even see SAML here, so maybe I just needed to have it installed. But it may be related to that.
So is that, um, that'll make those modules available?
Yeah, so then in order to actually access the steps, you like after that's installed, you need the dependency set up. You should be able to find, your data and everything based on the dependencies you have set up within here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because it's not like I'm gonna say it's a project. I mean, it's for just logging in, so I guess it would be just in the core, one of the core services for decisions,
Right. It's
not
the
necessarily a
project is just
project.
like the project is just the way that we have it set up to like run flows and like check everything now. Um,
Okay.
so that's where you have it, like any flows that are going to be running that step or anything like that to utilize your, SAML accounts and stuff like that. It's just placed in a project. It's just a different like a different organizational structure almost to kind of track everything that's in decisions so that you can, follow everything a little bit differently. As well as like for keeping track of things in like repositories and stuff like that. Um, and then everything is focused on the project instead of the whole system. So stuff like code compiles in version 8, if you did something to compile some code, it'll compile code everywhere. Like recompiling everything across everything that you have in decisions. So, if you have something like this with a ton of projects and a ton of things going on, that's happening every time. This new system will focus on just the individual project. So if I recompile something in this project, it'll focus on just the single project, stuff like that. So just a little bit different of a structure that we have in the version 9 for that, and how things are set up.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jeremy worded it really well, but like it just I know you're saying you're just using it to sign on, and when you add that SAML module, it'll show up in system settings so that you can adjust it there. The reason why you'd want to add it to a module is there's probably steps where you can create SAML users or interact with it in other ways. But if you're just using SAML as a logon service, it's just installing the module and then editing the settings within the system settings. Like I can send you the documentation. really quick if you'd like in the chat.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, I mean, my end goal was to, and I had some of this set up before, but now I couldn't find it from going from 8 to 9. My goal was to, we have a system that would, that our ERP system we're kind of almost syncing users from there. So I'd put
Okay.
in the contact ID from there, like their ID from their employee ID, and it would bring in their name and email and stuff.
Mhm.
And then from there, I would just create them as a SAML account. So it kind of would just do everything all at once. But I
Yeah. And
can't.
you can create a flow to automate that process, which is why you would want to use the decisions dependency within a project and allow that SAML module to be able to use steps to do it. But if you're just using it for sign-on, you should be fine with just installing the module and then go through system settings, or at least that's what it says in the documentation.
Yeah, I mean, people can log in just fine, but I kind of want to set it up before they get to that point. So I wanted to create my own flow with that module inside
Yeah.
of it. So it would, because that's the only way you can create them as a SAML user before that, right? Is to kind of add that module into a flow and run it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean,
So I was just trying to
there's
find it.
there's a million ways you could do that process too. Like you could do it as
Yeah.
part of a scheduled job that every so often it checks a certain thing and does X, Y, and Z. But yeah, just having a flow that just having a whole project that just says is called like, SAML infrastructure, and it just runs all of your SAML stuff. Um, could be a good use case for it.
Yeah, because right now it's we don't even know what users we want to sync yet. So right now it's just kind of a manual process. Like we want
Yeah.
this user, that user. So I'm kind of doing it one at a time, at
Mhm.
least initially. So yeah, that's where I was like, I seen the flow that has it in it. That's all I need.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. If you want to put it in
Okay.
the flow, you just got to make sure you just like what Jeremy was saying. Everything you're saying was 100% right. It's just making sure you have you put it in the project that parents that flow as a dependency as well. And it has to do with the way that when you actually migrate to get your project deployed into production, we're trying to work our way towards everything's being sealed packages, because in previous iterations you might have had, version 8, you might have had that module installed but not attached to a project. So then when you go to production, none of those steps are actually working because you didn't attach to a project on the front end. So that's why we're making it so you actually have to double down and, hey, declare this as a dependency on this project.
Got it. Okay.
It kind of keeps you in the bounds at the end of the game. Like it keeps it keeps you in the lines of the field when you get closer to the end zone.
Okay. Got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. The next question we have comes from Leia in the chat. We've got, is there any way to get a count of a number of rows in a truth table, overall or based on a specific condition or column, to be able to use in a flow? Let's take a look at something where I have a truth table. I think I have one in this project already, actually. And we can take a look at this. Yep, there we go. We've got a truth table. Remove some of this extra stuff so we can just take a look right at it. And I did allow you to talk, Leia, just in case you want to add anything. You don't have to, but while I'm taking a look at stuff, you can always chime in if you have anything additional to add to this.
Yeah, nothing else to add, just that, I think.
I'm not 100% sure, so that's why we're just gonna see what I can get. Yeah, so results is just gonna give me whatever I'm outputting from my truth table, so that's not gonna give it to me. Change. All matches. Let me just remind myself what this tuple has. And give me should be 5 things to output. But it's probably not going to be the same. Let me throw some important here. Constant. I want IT 3. Whoops, I just renamed my whole truth table. Okay, let's try that. See what happens. I think this will only actually grab matches. Yeah, it's only going to grab matches. So I have a bunch of options here.
Can you get a count of like how many meet a certain condition or how many have a certain condition in a column? Not necessarily a match output, but
Yeah, so I can change output certain things. So I think it's really just, it's a little dependent on how you have the truth table built, but really our only options for what the truth table outputs, the truth table is just going to output, the outputs from your, whatever you have set in your project to output information from, right? So it's just going to output whatever data is on these here, right? So whether it's like one account, a string, in my case, I'm outputting like the account data type, because it's supposed to like send it to an account in my system or whatever. Sorry. So it's going to output those particular items. So that's basically what the output of this truth table is going to display. So you can see when I'm trying to grab information, right? I have flow data or whatever, but this is the result of my truth table. It's just the outputs that it's grabbing here.
okay,
So
so you can just
here
count the
it's just
the
those
output.
things, and then from there, my only settings I can adjust are is whether I want it, if I'm outputting first or last match, then obviously I'm only going to have one result. If you do want to look at matches, so not necessarily everything in the truth table, but only the things that matched the categories, that I can grab the count from, because it's gonna output a list of all these things. So it's gonna output a list of everything that matched with my data. So then whatever stuff matches, that's what's going to go into this step. So you can see I only passed in the counts of whatever it was, like IT greater than 300. So I only have one specific item here that actually matched that out of my like 5 possibilities, in here in my truth table. So I can kind of do, I guess I can kind of do what you're looking for, and I can see the results of like all the different possibilities and stuff that it went through, but there's only actually one item that it was able to grab, and so it grabbed that one single account from the result that it had. And if I had more accounts, then I would have more pieces of data there. So if like I change this to IT's in 2 places, so if I made that number really high, right, and I run it, there's 2 places where IT is there, so I should get more results. So my count that I'm grabbing will now there's 3 things that passed. So, and then, I could also get the data from those 3 things if I want more than just the account. So there's data from my first one, second one, third one. So I have all the data there. So I can gather all the things that it did successfully match, but I can't really like pick and choose. You would need your truth table to be built specifically for that. Like if you're going to have multiple columns, I don't think you can configure it to only check that specific column. You'd have to build your truth table in such a way that it checks that. So that if it's first column, second column, whatever, it's kind of forcing me into department and total. If I needed to break it down or separate one versus the other, you can set these values to ignore. So I can ignore the condition, and now this one's only going to look for the department and ignore the total. So I know some people will create these and kind of do like opposites, where they'll create like what I had before, where it was department and total together, and then here's department ignored and total is here. So they're kind of like separated. If you carefully build it out this way, you might be able to achieve kind of what you're looking for. And if you want to check like individual items, but otherwise it's really just kind of how it's a little limited on what you can actually output for those counts. So you have to build your truth table in such a way to grab that data. Maybe a little
Okay.
bit careful.
All right, thank you.
I got a couple questions in the Q&A that I'll get to now. Let's see here. If you're working on a new flow that someone else built, what would be the best way to figure out what it's doing? That's a great question. And really a lot of that just comes down to some of like the best practices and what you should do in building a flow. If a user is not following the best practices, it's going to be very difficult to figure out what's going on. So this is one of my flows that I built like way when I first started decisions. And some things that we see a lot are people not thinking about naming stuff that's happening in the flow. So obviously you get information just by clicking on steps, learning what the steps are. You can look at step information to see what the step is, right? Oh, it's a show form step, and this is a setup process folder step. So you can clicking through stuff, to kind of learn that data, learn that information. But best practices are trying to use subflows to actually put things together so you can see items that match or that are focused on one general topic should go in that general topic, right? Like maybe I would put these 3 items in a subflow that's just focused on manager approval subflow. So I give it a name that says, hey, this is the manager approval subflow, and then inside it is my manager approval form. And then I've got my set state to approved, set state to denied. And maybe it's even better to readjust this step to actually be called like set state to approved instead of just approved, and set state to denied instead of just denied, stuff like that. So a lot of it comes down to that initial, when you're building your project, best practices, try to do the best you can to iterate what exactly is happening, what are you doing, give descriptive names for the steps so that you know what it is. Like this rule I just called auto approval rule, but if I wanted to detail more information, maybe I should name it related to what's actually happening in the rule instead of just saying auto approval rule. Maybe is the item in the list, the quantity total, whatever, detailing a little bit about what's actually happening that may provide more information for a user that's coming from the outside, or while you're on vacation and helping look at things. Because obviously the best case scenario is you get to sit and you get to talk with this person and say, hey, what did you do in this flow? This is what this is doing, right? But that's not always the case. You don't always get to do that. So a lot of times you have to click through something, and having the names, the naming conventions and everything on the steps are important. Here on my flow, it's called my purchase request flow, but there's no description. So maybe I should have a description on this, right? And to say, hey, this flow is used to allow a user to submit a purchase request and put in details for what they'd like to purchase. And then based on certain conditions, it'll either get approved automatically or it will be sent to a manager to then decide if that purchase request is valid and can be approved. Stuff like that. Like give it a description, give it details. That's typically the best way to provide users that aren't yourself information about what's happening. So if a higher up wants to take a look at your flow and understand what's happening, they can read that data. Or if someone's on vacation, they come back and they see all these new updates, or you get a new employee and that employee needs to start helping you build, a lot of different things like that. It all just comes from best practices from the start. Otherwise, you kind of have to read the step, learn what the step does, look at the inputs on the step, and figure it out from there. And obviously that can take a long time if the naming and things like that aren't as helpful. Let's see. And then in your opinion, how long does it take for a person to get started and contributing using decisions? And then what does the learning curve look like to you? Yeah, it definitely can range. It kind of depends on experience, knowledge, ability with technology, and like the time that you can put into this. I know like on our side of things, right, our training programs typically take about a week to complete if you can focus completely on the training programs. And so you'll like, and then obviously, slower learners may, take a little bit more time. Quicker learners will be able to do that pretty quickly. It kind of just depends on the person, but typically, right, with our like 6 main projects that you go through for training, that'll take approximately 6-7 weeks to complete if you're able to focus full time on doing those things. And then from there, you got a pretty decent understanding, and kind of branch out from there. It can definitely take a little while to get used to, but it's really just dependent on the person. Me personally, I came from a background with very little technology knowledge, but I picked up on decisions pretty quick. And so a lot of the things came to me. There's obviously still a lot of things that I need to learn, but that's, that just kind of comes with the territory of something like this. So, the more time you take, the more you'll be able to, learn from that and kind of see what else you can do from here. So yeah, it's kind of difficult to answer that like really objectively, but it's kind of different for everyone. There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of take that and learn from where that is. All right. I'm gonna get to Darren's asking a question. This is actually specific to a training project. But it's a good process to discuss for just people in general. Going through the data cleanup training sprint and trying to figure out how to update a database entry. So there's a couple ways that we can actually update any kind of like database elements. So the first thing you have is if you're using a database structure, we have the user-defined types and then the database structures within them. So if within this, I have my database structure for an employee record, for example. I have a set of steps. These are called CRUD, CRUD steps or something like that. CRUD is the acronym that we use. But it's basically, I have the ability to create, delete, edit, update, and things like that. So if you have your database structure that you're using, selective update is one great way that you can actually do this because it's specific to that database structure. And all it requires is an ID input. This ID has to be the item that you're trying to update. So you will need an ID to tell it, hey, what exactly am I updating? And typically you'll get that ID by fetching this database or something like that and sending it into this. You can use fetch entities, add criteria to it or something, whatever, but you do need an ID to tell it what exactly am I updating. Once it tells it what it's updating, then you have the actual data that you have the ability to update and change based on that data structure. So then from there, I can say, okay, well, now that I've got the, now that I know this is my thing, I've passed in the specific ID of the data that I want to change. I can now pick out what I want to change. Maybe I just need to change based on one specific person. I need to change their department from, professional services to IT or something like that, right? I can set that data, whether it's constant or maybe it comes from something. I set that data here with the changes. I can select from flow if I need to, if I have it built from previously in my project, and then send it into this. Then if I run this, as long as it gets the ID, it'll change that person's item. Selective update will only change the things that you change here, which is important. So if I'm using selective update, it will only change the department and it will not touch these other ones that I have ignored. Whereas edit is similar, but edit will have the same exact item, but it will focus on everything. So if I have all this stuff here and I set it up the same way, it will override all of these items and ignores will become nulls. So you always want to be careful with this. You only use edit if you're changing like everything. But if you want to simply just update something, selective update is one great way that you can do that. But that can only be found by going to user-defined types. And then in this case, since you're talking about, you mentioned a database structure, right? That we've created to update that entity, then you'll go to database structures, find the data structure that you have, For sprint 2, that would be master data copy. In that case, that should be there, right? But then I can, change it from here. The other way too that I can actually change, or not update, I think you can just use save entities is another step that you can use. This is just a broad step that you can do kind of like the same thing on. You can save entities of something. So here, I can pick a database structure of a user-defined type that I have. So, same exact thing. I pick employee record as my data type, right? And then it'll give me the entity, and it's the same kind of the same kind of process that I had looked at with up here, right? It gives the data, and then anything that's specific that I want to change. In this case, right, I change my department to IT, then it'll be able to save those entities, and stuff like that. If I need to do multiple, I can save multiple entities. It'll make it a list. So if I want to, save over some things, that's saving new records. Though, so that's like setting that up. There's also an overarching one called update entities. So if I need to update a previous entity, I can do that as well. I got not employee entity, employee record. And then it works very similarly to the selective update step, but it's more broad. So I don't have to go, specifically drilling down into user-defined types to find it. I can just grab the update entity step, set the data that I want to update here. So just like I did before, set department to IT, right? And get that data from there. And then have an input so that it knows what exactly I'm updating. The nice thing about this is that this can update multiple entities, right? It doesn't have to just update a single one if I need to and stuff like that. Whereas, this typically you're going to run this through like a for each step or something if you're utilizing that. Yeah, so that's kind of like the basics of where that's coming from. If we're looking at that, and I just did save entities, and this is an example here to save the data of my like updated records or save the data of any new records and stuff, just directly saving it with my save multiple entities. Since I have those data points here, I can just save them to the database. So that's typically what you can do there. Save entities, update entities, those are typically the easiest because they're kind of overarching. But if you want the more directed save and update, you can drill down through user-defined types to get to those. I think Leia already left, but I'm going to take a look at what you're mentioning in the chat, BT, just so that I have it and I can relay this information to her later. VT says, in the rule table service, there's a step open and get all entities that can give you the number of rows in a truth table by ID in the result steps. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not sure if we'll have access to that step in version 9, or we have to access it a different way. We can try
Would
it.
it not be in internal services?
It would be there. I just know like there's a lot of steps like in configuration storage that we had in version 8 that's hidden in
Oh, that
version
we might
9
have
and you can't find it
hidden
there.
in version
So it all depends
Got
on
it.
if we still have the rule table service in version 9. We may still be able to.
Rule table service. Open and get all entities. So yeah, I mean, it does look like we can have this. So if I run that. Oh, there we go. I see steps. Execution number, the number of rows. Okay. Yeah, so I can see under the steps, it does kind of display a lot of these things. You still have to be, it's definitely a very complex step, right? Since this is an internal services, gathering a lot of information, there's a lot to like look in with this. But having a bunch of these execution numbers, you should eventually see. We keep going through this, right? We have execution number 5, and we shouldn't have anything higher than 5 because of that's how many items I have in my tree build. Yeah, and execution number 5 is the last one. So it does look like you can get this as a little, if you're trying to just look at total options in a truth table. There it'll gather that information, and then from steps you would have to take back where steps was. From steps you have the list of execution numbers, and then you'd have to find the maximum execution number. Whatever the maximum execution number is, that would give you the, so you'd have to use a step to grab the maximum number out of all the list of execution numbers. In this case, I've got 17 different execution numbers that are coming through from grabbing different things. Whatever the highest number is there, that is how many rows I have in my truth table. So I guess we can get there. It's a little bit more convoluted in that way, and there's a lot of, overwhelming things with all the extra data that can be found because it is an internal service and it's looking at all of the stuff inside internal services. But if you really did need some way to grab exactly how many rows are in a truth table, it looks like that is a way to get it. So thanks, VT, for that input to look at there as well. All right. Anyone else have further questions? It's our last chance.
Oh, this is Wade from before.
Mhm.
Yeah, still struggling on this thing. So I don't know if I need to open a ticket or something, but yeah, I went in to try to add the project, but like yours showed, it just wasn't there. They added the dependency for the SAML service. I can go in and find it under administration and features, but it wants me to move it to a project rather than like add it as a dependency. So that seems not good. I don't know, this seems like it's kind of a special deal compared to the other modules. I can go in when I go into, trying to go back to dependencies, wherever I found that before.
That'd be under manage configuration
Manage
dependencies.
health.
Under configuration.
Oh, configuration. Okay, I got too many of these open. Dependencies, manage, then pick modules. The Salesforce one shows up, but the SAML one doesn't.
Right.
But everywhere I go it says it's installed. And it is currently working today. I mean, so it's got to definitely be installed.
Right. I might just ask around. I don't know. I doubt I'll be able to get an instant answer within the next 15 minutes for lunch and learn.
Oh,
But
no, that's fine.
let me just ask around a little bit, and since I know that I have the training call with you later today, I can bring it up, and then I'll figure out if hopefully we don't need to worry about it's just something small that we're missing. But
Okay.
if it is something bigger, then we can put in a ticket for it as well after that. But we
Okay,
can
gotcha.
discuss that later since we have our call later today.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Well, with that, thank you everyone for joining today. We've got, that's the end for this week. We will continue with our lunch and learn starting next week, and we'll have that schedule get sent out eventually as well. So we have an idea of who will be leading between the training team. But if you have any questions, please feel free to send an email at training@decisions.com if you have any training questions, additional questions for your projects or support@decisions.com. Check out our YouTube, check out Solutions Marketplace. Otherwise, have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you all next week.